Can you believe it? Our Prime Minister Keir Starmer is being so hypocritical, claiming that cutting gas subsidies for pensioners is to make Britain stronger, while he's perfectly willing to let a paedophile refugee stay in the country. He's utterly shameless, too appalling to remain in charge of the UK. He deserves to be publicly humiliated on live television. Watch this shocking turn of events, and don't forget to like and follow so you don't miss the next chapter.
Over the weekend it emerged that a convicted paedophile and illegal migrant from the Democratic Republic of Congo, who has been in the UK since 2008, escaped deportation. The man was convicted of sexually abusing his own stepdaughter as well as 2 other young girls in his family, yet has escaped deportation after completing a prison sentence owing to...
As you may have guessed, this is the European Court of Human Rights. This criminal was never granted asylum, but was allowed to remain in the UK in 2014 solely because he had gotten married. So, if an order for his deportation were to be carried out, it would be considered a violation of the human rights he is said to possess. However, when he was convicted of paedophilia and faced a legal sentence, he should have been sentenced to 3 years in prison rather than being allowed immediate entry after his conviction. But after serving his sentence, we are once again faced with the issue of dealing with this criminal. Despite not being eligible for asylum because he doesn't have the right to family life, he still benefits from that right. Now, this paedophile is going to return to the family he once abused. This isn't the only case like this. Earlier this month, an illegal immigrant from Nigeria and a convicted drug dealer managed to avoid deportation simply because Nigeria couldn't provide mental health services for them. Moreover, earlier this year, illegal immigrants from India and another convicted paedophile also managed to escape deportation, citing that such an order would affect their right to family life. Do these paedophiles really deserve to keep their rights? Is this reasonable? They are despicable criminals who have forfeited their rights through their vile actions. This is exactly the purpose of the criminal justice system, to ensure that offenders pay for what they've done. The consequences of the provisions in the European Human Rights Convention are becoming increasingly tangled and difficult to control. For example, an illegal immigrant from Syria and a convicted bank robber managed to stay in the UK in October, arguing that they would face persecution if deported to Syria. And this is the result of the ECHR. So what? Mr. Starmer's government and his socialist supporters have no real plan to address this issue. They don't care about it, because they believe this is the way society must be managed, by yielding to laws that override even the decisions of Parliament.
And these facts are all connected. They are all illegal migrants and criminals who avoid deportation, and we're not even allowed to know who they are. They're granted anonymity from the courts, and this seems to me to be even worse, that justice needs to be public. I understand if somebody has abused his own family, you need to protect the children of the family. But what about a bank robber and all these other people? We ought to get all their names wherever possible. On top of all this, it's the insult to the British people that the ever-growing conspiracy of silence that undermines democracy and prioritises the rights of foreign criminals against your rights to live in a country that ought to be safe and ought to have dangerous criminals removed. This great nation took 1,000 years to build, and it's being destroyed by an agenda of the global elite.
This global elite, those who have established a bureaucratic system full of irresponsibility, are imposing it on a democratic system where new cronies like the Attorney General place their power above our laws. This is the reality that Howard pointed out on the show last week. The right to vote is the most powerful tool for protecting freedom. A representative democracy must be able to make decisions in difficult situations. In contrast, bureaucratic systems like the ECHR and the Human Rights Act only serve to undermine justice, as they fail to confront reality and enforce the law properly. It's truly unbearable that these heinous criminals continue to exist as threats. Take this paedophile, for instance, who, despite remaining a potential danger, is still allowed to stay in the country. The cases related to this are currently being handled within the legal system, and several appeals are still awaiting resolution. There are also other appeals in play. In some cases, the Home Office has won. Specifically, in the case of the Syrian bank robber, the Home Office succeeded in appealing to a higher court, and the case was sent back to the lower court. There's also the case of the sex offender from Congo. Although he won in his previous appeal, the Home Office successfully overturned that decision in a subsequent appeal. As for the Nigerian drug dealer, he lost in the first court hearing, but won his appeal on a technicality when the judge applied the wrong legal procedure and didn't use the correct framework. However, this doesn't change the fact that the Home Office has still had some successes in these cases, and as these cases continue to be processed, we will gain a fuller picture of the overall situation. This summer, the House of Commons Library released a research summary on these issues, which further sheds light on the current situation.
And in that, we have the total number of appeals from April 2008 up until August 21. It's very interesting, April 2008 till August 21, because that straddles three sets of governments: the butt end of the Labour government, the coalition government, as well as a purely conservative government. And across those 13 years, migrants have won only 11% of cases where there's been serious criminality. The Home Office has been successful in 89% of cases. That, to me, would reveal that rather than providing a sanctuary for those who've committed serious criminality, the ECHR rather doesn't provide them with the protection that one believes. 89% of cases are won by the government.
Shouldn't we be focusing on other issues? For example, the enormous amount of legal activity currently underway just to deal with matters that should have been settled long ago. Dangerous criminals, like those committing serious offences, should be expelled from this country. That should be the ruling of our legal system. Yet, instead of taking the necessary steps, we grant these criminals the right to remain, even though the success rate of just 11% in these cases is already far too high. We cannot allow these criminals to continue existing in our society. The problem isn't just the overwhelming number of cases, but also the massive cost borne by taxpayers, along with the tremendous pressure the court system is under. The cost to taxpayers is huge. Even though it's reported that an 11% success rate in cases equals around 21,000 cases, this is still far too high. That said, the Home Office has succeeded in appealing approximately 6,000 of those cases. Of the 21,000 cases, only 15,000 now remain to be resolved. However, the bigger issue is that if 89% of these cases succeed, the number could rise to over 200,000 cases. But in reality, we do not have the capacity for 200,000 deportations in that period. The issue isn't just the legal framework, but also the lack of enforcement. This is a crucial issue. Why can't we be more effective in removing criminals? Two factors have been mentioned. Firstly, illegal immigration places significant pressure on this department, directly impacting its ability to resolve cases swiftly and efficiently. The court system is overwhelmed with cases, making it incredibly difficult to handle them. Moreover, new legal routes keep opening up between cases, providing new grounds and making everything more complicated. That's why Pretty and Tom were determined to pass the Nationality and Borders Act to speed up the case process. However, the truth is that from 2008 to 2021, the UK government has been utterly ineffective in dealing with this issue. Dominic Raab, when in government, strongly argued about the Bill of Rights. One thing ministers can do now is reconsider whether tightening barriers through the Bill of Rights, as Don suggested earlier, could bring results. While there's no parliamentary majority supporting leaving the ECHR, I believe ministers need to reassess this to see if such cases could be dealt with more swiftly.